God has afforded us this opportunity, this blessed privilege to gather in his house, to gather in his name, to stand before his life-giving, life-changing word. And I'm so glad about it. This is a reward for me, in a sense, when I have an opportunity to bring forth the word of God. It is most definitely labor to come to this point, but after I have wrestled and struggled and came home mentally exhausted, literally, now is the reward where I can bring forth treasures from God's holy and divine word. And I pray that you would, even as Minister Stephen said, be prayerful with me and for me, and let us dig into this word together. If you've been here with us, you know that I'm in Revelation, the 20th chapter, verse 7 through verse 10. We're going to spend some time in the book of Revelation, but today we're in Revelation chapter 20, verse 7, and we shall conclude after verse 10. All the while I'm telling myself, just settle into this word, take my time, open up the truth of God's word, and let God have his way. Revelation 20, verse 7. You should not have any problem finding the book of Revelation. If you are struggling, bless God, with locating the book of Revelation, please see me on Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock for prayer. First, we'll get you ready. And then at 7:30, we're going to get into the word of the living God. Amen. I believe that we have found the book of Revelation, chapter 20. Beginning with verse 7, the word says, when the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. In number they are like the sand on the seashore. They marched across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, the lake of fire, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Can I read verse 10 again? And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. And today I want us to deal with the judgment and destruction of Satan. The judgment and destruction of Satan. Let us pray together. Father, once again we have come into this place, gathered in the name of Jesus, the sweet name of Jesus, the powerful name of Jesus, the glorious name of Jesus. We have gathered in his name. Now, Father, we pray that you would move by your Spirit in this place, that you would remove any distractions, oh God, and that you would allow us to be attentive, that we, Father, would listen to the voice of the Spirit, be led by the Spirit of the living God. Father, I ask that you lead me even now as I bring forth your word. You know how the book of Revelation is. You know what various scholars have to say about it, with divergent viewpoints. But Father, I'm here this day on assignment from you to bring forth the truth of your word. Lord, I stand before your people with humility. And I ask, oh God, that you will help me. For I acknowledge that I need you like never before. So Father, be with us, bless us, and keep us. And help us, oh God, to bring forth your word. For we ask these things in the glorious name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen and amen. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord, our God. The judgment and destruction of Satan. Whether you believe it or not, whether you realize it or not, the Bible has a whole lot to say about justice. You know, we like to talk about the requirements of God as we see them and as we think we understand them, but we need to understand, we need to embrace the reality that the Bible has a lot to say about justice. We understand that the very essence and nature of God is justice. At the very center of his heart, the very center of his will is justice. But what is justice? Justice is the rendering to each one his or her due. Whether what is due is good or beneficial, or what is due is punishment for some wrong that is done. And the bottom line is that we want justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Right now. That's the mantra for some. We want justice, and we want justice right now. But it's a slanted or a projected justice. Let me explain. See, we want justice, but not when it means punishment for the wickedness that we do. It's a slanted or a projected justice. It's a justice that we want away from ourselves and on to somebody else for the wrong that they have done. We don't want to suffer punishment. We don't want to see justice done when we do wrong, but when someone else does something wrong, we cry out for justice. We want justice, and we want justice right now. Ask David when you consider how the prophet Nathan approached David, and David was indignant. He said, I can't believe that somebody would do something like this, so vile, so wicked. But then Nathan had to say, you are the man. But I won't tarry there. But I will say that we have to understand who Satan is. And I don't think that any sane person will dare stand up and try to defend the devil as if he is a person of character, a person who was perhaps just misunderstood. Perhaps if you just give him some time. No one in here wants to defend old Slewfoot. We don't want to defend Satan. But what we do want to see is his ultimate downfall for all the havoc that he has caused throughout the history of this world. We find the devil in the Garden of Eden, deceiving Adam and Eve, telling them that God is trying to keep you from the good stuff. You will not surely die if you eat from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Why don't you just go ahead and do it? Because God is trying to keep you from being like him. So we find the enemy, we find Satan, we find the serpent in the Garden of Eden deceiving our progenitors, our forefather and our foremother. We find him causing problems in the Garden of Eden. But we also find Satan in the very presence of God and the angels and speaking to God and telling him that I'm going throughout the earth trying to see who I can find and who basically I can get my hands on. And then he said, the only reason why people serve you is because of the benefits. Soon as you allow some trouble to come into their life, as soon as things get difficult, they will begin to turn away from you. Now, I must admit that he didn't totally lie on that one. Because I have found that at times when darkness rolls into our life, We somehow begin to walk away from God because we believe that God shall not allow this darkness or this rain or this storm to come into my life. But we find that the devil was speaking to God. And because of the conversation between God and the devil, we find that Job became the poster boy for suffering, unimaginable suffering. But we see this as the handiwork of Satan. We find Satan whispering in the ear of Judas, the disciple, and entering into his heart according to the word, and prompting him to betray his friend, to betray the Lord Jesus Christ. So Judas, he took heed to the voice of the enemy, who whispered in his ear, who deceived him. And Judas sold the Lord Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Satan has been busy. But we also find Satan at work, as Peter tells in 1 Peter 5:8, that he is a roaring lion, walking about, seeking whom he may devour. That is his job. That is his ministry, as it were. And I'm here to tell you that he is faithful in his ministry. He never goes on vacation. He never takes a break. He's always trying to harass and harm us. So in our minds, we want some justice. We want Satan to get his due. So in our text today, we have an opportunity to peep the end plan, God's divine plan, and God's judgment and destruction of Satan. Now do understand that the text before us, verses 7 through 10, is connected to verses 1 through 3. For in that verse, the 20th chapter, those verses, we find that Satan would be bound for 1,000 years so that he cannot deceive the nations. But in those first 3 verses, we find that at the end of 1,000 years, Satan will be released from prison. He will go about the business of deceiving the nations once again. So by the time we come to verse 7 of our text, when the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the 4 corners of the earth. The text says he will be released from his prison after 1,000 years. And he will go out to deceive the nations on the 4 corners of the earth, the whole world. And this lets us know at least 2 things. First of all, after 1,000 years, nothing has changed about Satan.
That's good.
After 1,000 years, there's been no improvement. There's been no transformation. He has not been rehabilitated. After 1,000 years, he got out of prison. And immediately he went about the business of deceiving some folks. Let's not be naive. I once heard someone say many years ago, not connected to this ministry at all, but many years ago, they said, you know what, I believe that we just need to give Satan a chance. I believe that we just preach the gospel to him, show him some love, then perhaps he will come around. Perhaps he would do right. No, Satan is who Satan is. After 1,000 years of being bound so that he cannot deceive the nations, once he's out, he want to go right back to it. That makes me think about some of the foolish things we see on earth. Folks spend 20 years in prison. You think that they will be rehabilitated. But as soon as they get out, they're looking to get in all kinds of trouble. I wonder why is that the case? Perhaps because that's who they are. So let's understand that Satan will be bound for 1,000 years, but once he is released, he's going to go right back to his deceptive ways, because that is who he is. Wasn't it Jesus who spoke in John 8:44, calling him the father of lies? He was a murderer from the beginning. That's what he knows. He is a father of lies. Now let's analyze this just a little bit. It's one thing to be told that you are a liar. If you were the father of liars, that means you're the chief liar. You're the president of the Liars Club. It's one thing to be a liar, but to be the father of lies suggests that's just who you are in your very nature. So we're not to be surprised that when once Satan is released after 1,000 years, he goes back trying to deceive the nations, because that is who he is. He is a liar and the father of liars. But we also consider 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, verse 4, when we find that Paul saying, if our gospel is hid, it is hidden through Satan blinding, the God of the world blinding their minds and their eyes so they can't see the truth of the gospel. So Satan's job is to try to deceive us into hearing the gospel, into receiving the gospel. He tries to keep us from embracing the Lord Jesus Christ, and he uses deception. You're already good enough as it is. You're a decent person. You never really raped anybody. Well, one time it was questionable, but there was no charges brought. So you're a pretty good person. You never robbed a bank. So why do you need to call on the name of the Lord? Why do you need to repent of your sin when you don't really sin that much in the first place? He tries to blind the mind to keep folks from coming into a relationship with Jesus Christ. But if folk fall through the trap and slip through that and he can't get us from coming to Christ, then he tries to deceive us in a whole other way. He says, really, you don't have to really be all that committed. You don't have to have a deep, authentic relationship with God. I mean, you can just come to church every now and then. You can wave your hands every now and then. And if you cry once a month, then it shows that you really love the Lord. So let's not go crazy. Let's not get deep in this thing. You don't really need to pray that much. You don't really need to get into God's word. You definitely don't need to tithe. So just relax. Take it easy. Let's be a superficial Christian, because even a superficial Christian won't get into heaven. And the day Satan is trying to deceive us, to hinder us, to keep us from being all that God wants us to be. So we're not surprised that Satan would actually be released from prison and then go right back to trying to deceive, and not just trying, but deceiving the nations. But it also tells us a second thing. It tells us that really we need to have a clear understanding of the utter sinfulness of the human heart. We need to come face to face with wickedness. Not wickedness out there. Wickedness right here. We need to understand the human heart. Now, some people say, I don't want to talk too much about sin, because the reality is the person is who they are because they were raised in a particular social environment or under social conditions, or they're living presently in social conditions or in a particular environment. So I don't want to say that they're really sinful. It's the social conditions and the environment that cause them to be this way. So if you put them in another place, if you put them in another neighborhood, if you put them in another house, perhaps they would not do the things that they're presently doing. But remember that we're talking about Satan being released after the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. After there's been peace and blessings, what kind of environment do you need if it's all about the environment? But the reality is this: we need to embrace Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitfully wicked. Who can understand it? Who can know it? And that is at the heart of the matter, the heart which is wicked. So we find then that Satan will be released after 1,000 years and will go about to deceive the nations. And then you wonder, well, who can he get to deceive if folks have been in the millennial reign of Christ? Well, the reality is there will be people that will be willing to be deceived. And notice our text. We'll go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, which says the whole world. Then it says Gog and Magog, and to gather them for battle. When you read Gog and Magog, those are biblical names which represent nations that are hostile towards God, or rebellious towards God, and hostile towards his people. When you look at Ezekiel, the 30th chapter, you find Gog was the leader of the land of Magog, and there was a gathering of the nations that sought to come and surround the people of God. They were coming to destroy the people of God. So here John the Revelator is speaking of Gog and Magog, because the people of God will understand that to look back at Ezekiel the 30th chapter and find that this is a depiction of the nations coming together to fight against God's people. Now, and this is no small gathering of nations. In number, they are like the sand on the seashore. That's another way of saying there will be many, 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 many people involved in the many, many, many nations that will gather together to come against the precious people of God. Verse 9 says, they marched across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. So the nations come together. There's a lot of them. Now they're marching across the breadth of the earth to surround the camp of God's people, the camp of the saints, the city that he loved. They are surrounding God's people. They're trying to surround God's city. And I just wonder, we obviously can see the trouble brewing in the text. So I wonder, what will God's response be to people gathering to fight against his people? And even as I wonder about God's response, how will God deal with nations coming out to the door of the city, as it were, to surround the city, to lay siege to the city, to harm the people of God? What will God do about it? Well, I can't help but think about 2 Kings chapter 19, when King Sennacherib, who was the king of Assyria, he was a mighty king leading a mighty nation, and they were warriors, and they were mean, they were vile, they were wicked, they had a reputation throughout the world. Don't mess with the Assyrians. So they laid siege to Jerusalem, and the people were fearful. And King Sennacherib said, there is no way in the world that your God can keep us out of Jerusalem when we are determined to come in there. Ask all the other kings and ask the other nations that their gods keep us out of their cities. Any city we want to come into, we will come into it. We are the mighty Assyrians. Look over the record books. Who ever stopped us from coming into the city when we wanted to come into the city? We are so bad. Jerusalem, we're going to come and kick yours. But to kick something, you have to bring something. And it's in the bringing that Assyria found themselves in trouble. They was talking loud, saying nothing, talking about God can't keep us out. We're going to kick your, okay, if you're going to kick something, you got to bring something. And when they brought something, they got theirs kicked. 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were put down by the might and the strength and the power of Almighty God. Please don't surround God's people trying to do them some harm. God gets in an uproar when you mess with his people. Let God arise and his enemies be scattered. So we need to understand that it's a dangerous thing to position yourself around the camp of God. It's a dangerous thing to try to surround the city that God loves, because now you're putting yourself in position to be taken out by God. See, even in Ezekiel, when we find in the 30th chapter, we find the case of Gog and Magog. If you read on down through that chapter, we find, I want to read verse 22, 23, because we need to ask the question in that prophetic text, what was said about what would happen because the nations would come to surround God's people. I'm reading verse 22 and 23 of Ezekiel 38. I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops and on the many nations with him. Verse 23, and so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. They will know that I am the Lord. So in that particular prophetic book, we find that when the nations would gather, God will be waiting for them. God's going to rain down some fire on them. And notice what we find in our text here, Revelation 20, verse 9, looking at the sea part. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them. So they gathered together, the nations gathered, they surrounded God's city, they surrounded God's people. They came ready for battle. I don't know, they might have been doing some calisthenics. They might have been warming up. They might have been stretching. Perhaps they were going ahead and getting the water supply right, getting their snacks together. It might take a minute, but we're going to take these folks out. They came ready to do some battle. They came ready to do some damage. But the text says, but fire came down from heaven and devoured them. So can we say that even though they had gathered for a battle, there really was no battle? They put themselves in a position to receive the fire from heaven to devour them. And that makes me feel encouraged. Not so much that fire came down, praise God, if that's what needs to happen, let it happen. But I'm encouraged because it lets me know that if I'm surrounded by my enemies and God gets ready to fight. See, when God gets ready to fight, when God rolls up his sleeves, when God stands up, when God comes to do what God needs to do, it will be over soon and very soon. It will not be a long battle. It will not be a conflict. It will not be a war. It will not be a struggle. But God knows how to send fire down from heaven to devour those who surround us, to harm us and harass us. When God gets ready to fight, when God gets ready to rebel, when God gets ready to throw down, when God steps into the building, when God puts up his fist, when God puts it down, it will be on and popping for just a second. Because it doesn't take God long. I love this text, but fire came down from heaven. And when I saw that, I thought, when God gets ready to fight. See, people go through rituals for fighting. Have you noticed that? I didn't even write this, but it came to me because I saw some of it yesterday. I saw some of it yesterday at the dinner theater. See, there's rituals for fighting. Let me take off the earrings. Straighten this lace up, I'm gonna go ahead and put my shoes on, I'm ready to fight. See, all these rituals. And unfortunately, sometimes folk will do all these rituals, flexing, flowing, talking all this stuff, and gets knocked out in 2 seconds. But not God. See, God doesn't need Vaseline. He's not going to take off any earrings. He's not going to lace up. He's not going to put his hair in a ponytail. But when God gets ready to fight, I'm encouraged today. Because I might go through some things. You might go through some things. But when God gets ready to fight, when God gets ready to come and see about you, when God comes to make a way out of nowhere, when God comes to give you the victory, hallelujah, when God gets ready. So if that's true, all you have to do is wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and he will strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. He's coming. And when he comes, he's going to fight. He's going to fight well. God has never lost the battle. God has not been touched. Nobody can contend with God. When God gets ready to fight. Go ahead and sit down. I got to get this last chunk in here. But when God gets ready to fight, oh, I love that. I'm still excited about that thing because I need God to fight some stuff. Do you need God to fight some stuff in your life? Can you fight God into your situation? Do some praise. God, I'm struggling, but I'm praising you. God, I'm discouraged, but I'm blessing you. God, my heart is broken, but I give you the glory. I don't see the change yet. I don't see the blessing yet. I don't see the manifestation yet. Yes, I will give you some glory. I will give you some honor. I will not wait until the battle is over. I'm going to shout right now. Because I know in the end, I'm going to win. When God gets ready to fight. When God gets ready to throw down. When God gets ready to rumble. I need God to step into something. What I need to do is step back. Let God do it. Step back. Let God do it. but give him some glory as the King of glory is making his way into your situation, into your circumstance, into your trials, death, and temptation. When God gets ready to fight, sit on down, I got to move on. When God gets ready. So they thought it was going to be a battle. They thought it was going to be a fight. They thought it was going to be a victory. But God sent fire from heaven, devoured them. No fight, no battle. It was over. It was finished. So now God says, who has next? God says, who wants some? Who's next? Who wants some of this? And we find what God is doing in verse 10. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into a lake of fire, the lake of burning sulfur. Now notice that the nations gathered, they received fire from heaven, they were devoured. But that was not Satan's end. In the 10th verse we find the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, to the lake of fire. The lake of fire. The lake of fire. What do you think about when you hear that phrase? The lake of fire. The lake of fire. Now, I know what I imagine. I imagine a lake whose essence, or that essence is simply fire. It's not what it's fire. That's the essence of the lake. It's fire. That's what I think. But we do need to understand that we're not to necessarily think in literal terms. Really, what we understand is that this is picturesque language that speaks of a reality in the spirit realm which says that there will be an ultimate destruction of the forces of evil that has plagued us since the Garden of Eden. We don't need to look at the lake of fire as something that is necessarily literal. We understand Jesus speaking in Matthew 25:41. He's talking about the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. The devil and his angels are spirit beings, but we understand that fire is material and belongs to the material world. So how then can actual physical fire touch spirit beings? That which is not physical. Fire is considered somewhat physical, it belongs into the material world of its world. So we don't need to really wrestle with that. All I'm saying is we don't necessarily need to take the lake of fire as a literal lake, as we understand a lake that perhaps would be on fire. We don't necessarily have to think of it that way. But we do understand, even though we may look at it symbolically to a degree, we need to understand that the horror that will be there, the horror that will be there. I don't need to figure out all the details, but the reality is the text is letting us know it's not going to be pretty no matter how you slice it. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into a lake of burning sulfur where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Notice these two things. One, tormented. To say tormented means that one is conscious. If a person is dead, you can beat on the body. I'm not suggesting this, of course, but you can beat on the body, do different things. The person who's dead is not going to feel it. But if they are conscious, if a person is conscious and someone is doing something, then you will feel it. You can be tormented if you are conscious. So to say that there will be torment says we're talking about a conscious reality here. But then the text speaks of day and night, forever and ever. So not only is it conscious, but it's everlasting. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. But the fire does not go out, the worm never dies. Talking about day and night, forever and ever. And this is where modern thinking comes into play. The modern man comes to critique the man of antiquity and suggests that, well, they were superstitious. they didn't really understand some things. We have modern sensibilities, and we just can't possibly actually believe that God would allow for conscious suffering that's everlasting. I just can't believe that God would do that. I just can't believe it. Well, there's something else I can hardly believe. That God would wrap himself in flesh in the person of the Lord Jesus Christ to be the propitiation of sin, to make sure that we can come back to God, to make sure that we can be in relationship and fellowship with God. I can hardly believe it, if you understand how I say it. That God would leave glory to come to earth in a frail body on a redemption mission, a rescue mission. He did not want to leave us in our state, so he sent Jesus, which was sending himself. Emmanuel, God is with us. I can hardly believe it, but God did it. So we don't need to wrestle with whether or not God would allow someone to suffer in an everlasting way. We need to wrestle with, what can I do to not suffer in an everlasting way, in a conscious way? Let's not wonder about what God would not do. Let's talk about what he did do. He sent Jesus to bear in his body the sins of the world. So now we have an opportunity. They say yes to Jesus, but in the modern thinking, I just don't like this. This is mere superstition. I don't think that God meant what he said when he wrote this. Again, it may be symbolic language, sure. And I don't need to understand every single detail, sure. But I know enough, brother, to want to shy away from anything that's spoken of as the lake of burning sulfur, and we're talking about there's going to be torment day and night forever. How many realize forever is a mighty long time? Some of you can't even get through a 45-minute sermon without wanting to pass out. When is he going to finish? When I get through. That's when. And so if you can't deal with a 45-minute sermon where the word of God is being proclaimed, what you going to do being tormented day and night forever? I'm about through, but I'm just letting you know. We can't take the things of glory. We can't be in the prayer meeting more than 30 minutes. The praise going too long. Would they please move on? I'm tired of praising God. How about you burn up in hell? Would you like that? Perhaps I'm giving a preview for next week, but anyway. But the text lets us know, after all that Satan has done throughout history, we know what his end is going to be. Don't let him drag you down to his level. Don't let him pull you into his fate with God. He will be judged and ultimately destroyed in the lake of fire. And see, some fool, yes, I said fool, some fool said, well, if it's a lake, that means then a lake has two sides at least. I'm going to swim from one side of the lake to the other side of the lake. I'm going to get out. Heard somebody say, I don't mind going to hell. I'm going to put the fire out. Rather than spending time on all this foolishness, on all this utter foolishness, why not just repent? Why not repent of your sin? Why not repent of my sin? Why not call on the name of the Lord my God and ask him to save me, Lord? Because the text is true. I don't know the details in concrete terms, but it looks bleak to me. It looks scary to me. I don't think I want any parts of it. Because the text says, and the devil who deceived them was thrown into a lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night, forever and ever. I've dealt with Satan's end in the lake of fire. Next week, I'll deal with verses 11 through 15 of the same chapter, looking at the great white throne judgment. And the question will be, who else will be in there with you as you rest on your feet? Say, Lord, have mercy. Hallelujah. Glory to God. Come back next week. And then you can't let it end with that. Come back the next week when we go to heaven. Can we do that? This is a series. Hallelujah. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Father, we thank you. And we bless you.